this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is a video to compare two wonderful wireless gaming mice that I've unboxed and reviewed previously. The Logitech Pro X Superlight, seen here, and the Roccat Kone Pro Air. These are two lightweight mice with a number of different highlights to them and some nice design aesthetics. And you'll see they are quite striking in their designs and yet quite understated as well. They're both available in different colours, so you can get the Pro X Superlight in white or black, and the same for the Kone Pro Air. And they are obviously fantastic looking mice. The Pro X Superlight is very understated with no RGB lighting and a really simple setup that includes 2.4 GHz wireless connection, a micro USB charging cable, a dongle adapter extender cable that you can plop on your desk, and a really cool setup with some massive PTFE feet, and I'll show you more on that in a minute. Now this mouse goes all the way up to 25,600 TPI, which is nuts. In the box you'll also see it comes with grip tape, which is very useful. Now this is the lighter of the two mice, weighing at 63 grams. You can see mine actually weighed in at 62 without the wire, where the Roccat Kone Pro Air is 75. So if you're looking for a lighter mouse, the Pro X is it. However, the Kone Pro Air is slightly different because it has a more ergonomic shape and a larger frame. It's also designed with that sort of honeycomb finish on it, but on the underside of a robust and durable but thin outer shell that leads you to see some nice RGB lighting that you'll get a view of in a second. And you can see that RGB lighting shining through the left and right mouse buttons, which is a fairly unusual design. You usually get RGB lighting at the back where your hand's going to cover it, but here it's bleeding through the left and right mouse buttons and the very edges at the front. You'll also note this thing has some large PTFE areas, as well as a button on the underside to switch between Bluetooth and wireless. Both have 2.4 GHz wireless connections, and this USB dongle has a dock on the underside and will plug into your PC with a USB 3 port and work nicely there. You'll also note there's a button on the underside to switch between profiles, and that can be adjusted within the software to do other things. You have multiple different buttons on this mouse, and even more with Roccat's Easy Shift technology, which allows you to set up a secondary layer of actions that can be programmed within the software. That makes this mouse really appealing because Easy Shift is fantastic. Another thing you'll note is that this one comes with a USB-C charging cable instead of micro USB. Quite a striking design, as you can see. The white one looks really nice. I looked at the Kone Pro black version, the wired version, so if you'd like to see the difference in colors, be sure to check out the links in the description to my other reviews. But I really like the striking design of this mouse. You also note there are some quite slight textured lines on either side of the mouse. That makes it grippable and easy to hold on to. I found the black one to be quite slick when I tried the wired one, but the wireless version didn't seem to have that issue. It sits in the hand nicely. One of the things I like about it is the lightweight design and that sort of light shell, but it does sound quite hollow. However, it doesn't have any rattles or anything like that, so it does do the job and in a satisfying way. Also, you'll note that sort of large ergonomic finish on it, which means it sits nicely in the hand. And as I said, this is the slightly larger of the two, with a really interesting shape for right-handed gamers. USB-C charging cable in theory makes things easy to plug in. However, I did find it a little bit fiddly on occasion to get this plugged in. One thing of note though is that this mouse has up to 100 hours of battery life, 2.4 GHz or Bluetooth connectivity, and it also has a rapid charge functionality. So when you plug it in with that USB-C cable, you can actually get several hours of extra gaming out of it with just a few minutes of charge. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Pretty nifty, and as you'll see, some really nice RGB lighting there, glowing nicely on my fingers. Now the Pro X Superlight is obviously a really interesting mouse. This is a pro level gaming mouse with a number of highlights to it. I already said it has 25,000 max DPI, has 40 Gs acceleration, 400 IPS, 1000 Hz polling rate, and up to 70 hours of battery life. But it's also compatible with Logitech's PowerPlay system, which means that you can buy a powered mouse mat and then put this mouse on it and just keep it going without ever having to plug it in. So that's a really neat system worth looking at. You'll see the Pro X Superlight also comes with the dongle, the adapter, and a swappable little housing for the underside, which I'll show you in a second, which allows you to increase the PTFE areas on the mouse, which is nuts. You can see the USB dongle easily plugs in with a micro USB connection to this extender, which you can then put on your desk and have within reach. This means that you can easily unplug that and plug it into your mouse. So you only need to use one USB port on your PC rather than two, so you don't have to fill it up, one with the dongle and one with the cable. And that is a bonus. It also allows you to extend the range to ensure you're getting a good range. This is worth noting because the Kone Pro Air does not include something like this, and yet other people have complained about the wireless connectivity range of that mouse. I haven't had an issue with it, but I did note in my review that you could see the strength of the signal within the software, and despite my mouse being quite close to the desk, it had some issues with the connectivity being weak. The Pro X Superlight is, in my mind, the better looking of the two mice. I really like the Rgb lighting and the Roccat Kone Pro, but the Superlight is really understated. It has none of that honeycomb or holes sort of feel to it that a lot of other lightweight gaming mice do, and yet it has a very nice fit. It is smaller, though, I will note. I do prefer the sort of size of the Kone Pro, but this has a really nice setup to it. Now you have these really large PTFE feet on the underside that makes it really slick and easy to move about. Obviously, being lightweight, it's equally good. You will note that it only has 2.4 gigahertz or wired connectivity, though there's no Bluetooth option here, so that's one difference between the two mice. On the underside, you can remove that little bit of housing, and then there's a port to store your dongle on the underside too, so the wireless dongle can be stored in there. There's also a additional housing included in the box that has more PTFE on it, so you can now see that the bottom of the mouse is now incredibly slick. This is also a really satisfying setup and really easy to use and easy to swap out, so you can change between the two quite easily. So what you're seeing is a really cool mouse with some minor customization options. I found it really satisfying to game on and to use during the day. Long battery life, a constant solid connection, and obviously those 5 programmable buttons that you can customize. It doesn't have quite as many buttons because the Kone Pro Air has that additional one on the underside that you can program, and obviously the easy shift option I already talked about. But the Pro X Superlight is not to be sniffed at, and that included grip tape also makes it even grippier. Although when you're using the tape, that does sort of make the mouse look a bit more marred, and I covered this in a bit more depth in my review. Now, as I said, the Kone Pro Air is the larger of the two. That's not immediately obvious from this, but it sits higher off the desk, and it just sits nicely in the hand. It has a interesting ergonomic shape on the left hand side where your thumb sits, which means it sits nicely in the hand and fits really well there. And I found it probably more comfortable, but I think I like the overall setup of the Pro X Superlight a bit more. But you can see, just get an idea of what it looks like in my hand and how it fits, and so you can see comparable to yours perhaps. At the underside, you obviously have those extra buttons. You have a really nice RGB glow out of the top, and that's one of the things that I really like about it. That setup and the design that they've done there, but just the ergonomic shape and how it sits in the hand. And it's surprisingly grippable despite not having loads of texture to it. Now I wanted to show you what the mouse looks like alongside the Superlight. So obviously the Kone Pro Air there, and then the Logitech Superlight. You'll see very straight lines by comparison. Doesn't have that same ergonomic shape. And here's the Razer Viper Ultimate as well, just so you can see the lineup of options and get a comparison in terms of the size and shape there. And you'll just note the differences between them. And you can see what I mean. It's slightly larger, stands a little bit taller and a little bit wider, and just has that quite an ergonomic difference to it. But I do like the large PTFE zones on both these mice, and they give you really easy access to things, and also just really nice lines and a good setup. Also, it's worth noting that the Roccat uses an optical sensor, and Titan optical switches as well. So it has Roccat's optical switches, which means that the click should register faster and that the buttons will last for longer too. So it's worth bearing that in mind. So there you have it. Two wonderfully satisfying gaming mice with quite different designs and quite different features to them. I'd recommend checking out the reviews linked in the description so you can find out more, get more close-ups, and have a look at what goes on in the software and what's possible there, because there are a lot of different options and what you can do with that. Hopefully this has been a good insight into these mice. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.